We're live.
We're
We are
live and
unstable.
unstable. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cosmopolitics and What the Hell is Going On Hot Takes Happy Hour. We have a lot of people already joining us. Very exciting. Do we call
It's
this
mostly the unhappy hour, I have to say, because I'm drinking water and I didn't give everybody a cocktail recipe because I'm sick as a dog. So I apologize. I've got a fever. I'm a funny pink color.
but she'll
But
still have her usual cheery disposition.
I know I'm full of love for humanity. What are we going to talk about today? There's
Can
so
we
much
call
going
this
on.
do we call this the Papal edition or the Papal edition? Is it Papal or Papal?
It's papal.
Okay,
Definitely. That
because
sounds like a
last night on
disease.
Someone TV, someone called it Papal. But
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
we shouldn't be drinking anyway because we're celebrating the first American Pope, and I'm sure he doesn't drink. Um, Leo the
About that.
14th. I don't know. Leo, he doesn't have sex, so maybe he does drink. Do we
I'm not
need
touching
some
that one.
vices? We need some
We've got
vices.
two Jews talking about the Pope, so
Um, but it is exciting that he's from this country. Look, when you have these spiritual figures, and one day I'll write about the time I met the Dalai Lama, but I've told you about this numerous times. Like, now I'm a little bit consider myself like more of a Jew boo or a Judist or whatever you call them. But when you meet a spiritual figure like that, it really doesn't matter, what denomination you are or what religion you follow. They have this presence, and their holiness is, it does grab you. And my screensaver, I can't share for everybody right now. But it is my meeting with the Dalai Lama, and I just burst into tears when I met him, and he put that prayer shawl around me because it was such an awesome, awesome moment. So I know Catholics around the world are cheering, Americans around the world are so excited there's a pope, but I've heard a lot of mixed reactions. Obviously around the world, they're like, there's an American Pope.
why not? We've got Catholics,
I agree.
and wait, was it Patricia who just said they like the wine? Yes, they do like the wine. We also, as Jews, like the wine. So there is a lot of wine drinking among Catholics and Jews have a lot in common. Anyway, I think it's thrilling that he's an American. I don't know very much about him. I asked my Catholic colleagues what they know, and they don't know a lot about him either. I listened to his speech that he gave from the balcony at St. Peter's, which is really, an
Yeah,
amazing
that
moment.
again, an incredible backdrop for this amazing moment. And what hit you about what he said?
Stuff I don't like, actually. I think he
Like what?
struck a humble note, which I thought was great. But the peace and justice stuff I don't like because that is basically Francesco,
Pope
the late
Francis.
Pope's Pope Francis's credo is this basic revolutionary theology of Latin America that has lots and lots of Marxist influence. When you talk about peace and social justice, is it peace and social justice, or is he talking about something else? We're just going to have to find out, though. Look, he may be amazing. He may not. The one thing we do know is that Catholics need a breath of fresh air. I think Francis was, in some senses, one, but they do. Church attendance is declining dramatically in the United States. It's gone up for the first time in the UK, which is interesting. But people do need to have a renewal of faith, and that's going to be his job.
Church attendance may be going down in the US, but I was just listening to some, cardinals on television, and they said that actually Catholicism in the US is on the rise. It's interesting, because his name, the name Leo the 13th, kind of this connection to
14.
Leo the 13th. He's Leo the 14th, who supported labor rights and unions. And I mean, I think he's going to, continue many of Pope Francis's positions, such as environment, outreach to marginalized groups, the poor. He supported the allowance for divorced Catholics and those outside the church to receive communion. But I don't know.
We're
Look,
going to see.
this past Pope.
He also called Gaza every single day after the war between Hamas and Israel began. So yeah, I wasn't a fan. But hey, there's tons more to talk about, and two Jews talking about the Pope sounds like a comedy routine,
Yeah, it
which
does.
could,
It
could
does.
go well.
Which it kind
So
of
we'll keep an eye on the ball, on the papal ball, not papal, which sounds gross. India, Pakistan. Um, to
that's
coin a
another
phrase,
gross situation. Yeah.
what the hell is going on? What is amazing to me is that the global reaction to
Right. Is
a
a
fight
snoozer.
between it's like, meh, right?
Right. But you
It's
have
crazy.
2 nuclear powers kind of once again on the verge of war, and this happens, I don't know, every, like, 5 or 6 years or maybe a few more, but nobody really seems to, know what's going on or care. It started from this attack in Indian side of Kashmir by Pakistani militants. India responded, Pakistan responded, in kind, and this is the most serious escalation between them in decades, really. I mean, I remember I was at CNN and, the early, I guess they call it the early aughts, but I don't really like that word, the early 2000s. I've never
Yes.
been an aught. And, Pakistan is saying it's going to avenge this latest attack, but it does seem like, both sides are trying to minimize further escalation. And I do think, I think maybe cooler heads will prevail. What do you think?
So my colleague Sadan Dume, who has a column in the Wall Street Journal, was writing about this. He says he thinks that the Indians want to, want an off ramp. One of my least liked expressions about diplomacy, and I think that's probably true. 26 people were killed. But here's the thing, Elise, and this is what I don't get as an American. We um, we have systematically over the last, let's see, wow, since 1990, kill me, 35 years, we have ignored Pakistani behavior. And yeah, I get it. Pakistan was our ally in the Cold War. That was great. They were the facilitators of our support to the Mujahideen in the 80s. That was the nail in the coffin for the Soviet Union. Yay to that. But after 9/11, the connection between the Pakistani intelligence service, the ISID, and the Taliban and Al Qaeda was undeniable. And they have just gone back to that. They continue to support the Taliban. They continue to support terrorist groups that are training and on their territory, and that and that perpetrated this attack. And I don't understand why we let that simmer, because at any moment, it could be something truly dangerous, whether it is a
Right.
nuclear exchange
Right.
war between India, Pakistan, whether it's them supplying nuclear technology to rogue states, which they've done over the years. I don't get the sort of the met about this.
Well, I mean, and look, one of our listeners, Dan Raviv, said, the two countries having nuclear bombs didn't stop that Pakistan's terrorist groups, and he thought that India was pretty restrained in this massacre. Rightly so. I agree with you, Dan. What I think is really interesting is actually what you've seen in Pakistan over the last, year, maybe and change, is that the Taliban has kind of turned against Pakistan, and now Pakistan is facing all these. Well, they're facing. You can't deny that they're facing a lot of terrorist attacks by the TTP. All of these groups, it's coming back to bite them, and you'd think that they don't need another headache on the border with India, and they're facing a lot of attacks from Baluchistan with these Baluch. You think they're nobody, this little group of separatists, but they've been causing a lot of problems for the Pakistanis on the border with China, and all these Chinese workers have been attacked. So Pakistan is facing a terrorist threat throughout the whole country from a whole ton of groups, and you would think that this is one area that they would not want to get into an escalation with another nuclear power.
You'd think, but I think that there are, look, I hate this expression, so I'm going to say this with a little bit of of hesitancy. There are rogue elements within the ISI that do support terrorist groups, even when the government doesn't want to. But at the end of the day, that's not our problem. That's the government's problem, and they need to be dealing with that. This whole, oh, we're not sure who's really responsible. I don't care. right? It's the government, they're responsible. And just, to me, it was a little bit like the reaction of the United States when we, zero dark 30, when we find Osama bin Laden living, miles away from a
Right.
Pakistani military camp in Pakistan. And we're like, yeah, you're dead now. We kill him. We kill those guys. We get his documents. And we're like, hey, Pakistan. Yeah, all's good. What? So
Well, I mean,
this is a blind spot for us.
it's a blind spot for us, and it doesn't seem like we're going to get involved in this one either. When asked yesterday about what's going on, President Trump said, "It's a shame." So
It's
it
a shame.
doesn't he
Like Jerry
probably didn't know
Seinfeld.
that
That's
much.
a shame.
I'm pretty sure he didn't know that much about the history of Kashmir, but he should be worried when, two nuclear powers are, escalating towards war. As we said, it looks like the Indians are trying to de-escalate. Hopefully, the Pakistanis will take that cue. Um, should we move on to the
Yes,
UK
but
trade
I'm
deal?
smiling. I'm
The
smiling because
first
someone just commented, which is 100% true, that they should start a drinking game in which every time I say I hate some IR, some international relations term, somebody should take a drink. I totally agree with you. You should definitely take a
Okay,
drink
can
every time I say
everybody
that.
what should we call it?
I don't know. I don't know. Diplomatic hate bingo. I have no
Diplomatic,
idea.
license to drink.
Yeah. Who the heck knows? Sorry, guys, I'm coughing. So let's talk a little bit about another thing where I don't quite get what's going on in the diplomatic space. But let me add, for those of you with a drink in your hand, it's a very fluid situation. I'm not quite sure we
That's
drew a
another
line
one.
in the sand with the Houthis, but what do you think happened
Oh, I think that, Trump kind of looked at the numbers, and I wrote about this, was it this
this morning?
morning? I don't even
Yes,
know
it
what day
was.
it is,
Great
but
piece.
yeah, basically, I think Trump looked at the numbers, this attack, said that we're doing Egyptians, we're doing the Gulf a favor by going after the Houthis. Um, and we're not getting anything in return. And this is the total, America first, transactional foreign policy, that President Trump is like, we're not getting our bang for the buck. We're spending, billions of dollars on this bombing campaign against the Houthis. And what are we getting for it? And basically, they called up the Houthis, the Omanis helped mediate, but the U.S. has been talking to the Houthis a bit over the past few years, and basically it came to a deal with the Houthis. And it's like, you stop shooting us, we'll stop shooting at you, and let's call it a day. And when you
And screw
ask,
the
what
Jews.
about
And
Israel? What about
yeah,
Israel, whose airport they hit the other day? What about the
new
Gulf?
airport.
What about Saudi Arabia and the UAE, who have faced massive threats and whose relationships with Trump, soured for a while as a result? He didn't do anything. It's like, I don't, and I'll
So
say,
you're
there.
breaking up a little. You're breaking up a little for me, Elise, so I don't know
Okay.
exactly what you're saying. So I am going to talk about my post this morning, which
Okay.
was, yeah, I know. Thank you, Rosalie. Elise has got dodgy internet, and so do I, because we don't live in the 21st century. I'm sorry. That's our horrible secret, where our internet is a time traveler from 1995. But the piece I wrote this morning is certainly going to give put a smile on the face of everybody to the left of me, which is I actually think that the deal with the Houthis is something more sinister than what you described. I don't think it's America first. I think that this is Iran's friends who are influencing the White House. This is Steve Witkoff, Eric Trump, Er- uh, Steve Witkoff's son, all of whom
Let's
are
remind
in
people,
bed.
Steve Witkoff is the Mideast envoy, the Ukraine envoy, the everything envoy, Superman. He's coming over to wash your clothes and do your dishes later. That's Steve Witkoff, Trump's kind of consigliere.
Yes, it would be nice if he were coming over to wash my clothes later, but that's the only thing he's not doing. But the Omanis are too close to the Iranians, and they are the main interlocutor for our Iran talks. The Qataris are too close to the Iranians and to Hamas. They are the main interlocutor for our talks in the West Bank and Gaza. These are not good guys. And, the Omanis are just sort of the low rent Qataris. People say, oh, no, they're really just about being a facilitator. And the answer is, no, they're not. They are on a side. when I was there, and I wasn't invited back, when I was there, I met with and with a group of our friends, actually, I met with the Houthis, the death to the Jews guys. They live their sweet life in Muscat, and then they go back and try and kill people. So I'm really
That's a
worried
nice thing.
about this. I go into a lot of gross detail here in the piece. Go have a look at it on our Substack. We need to move
I think
on.
yeah, but how do you um how do you explain the fact that Trump completely left the UAE and Saudis and the Israelis out of this deal? Like, stop shooting up you, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, look, the way I explain it is that apparently it was the Iranians who were leaning on the Houthis, but obviously not leaning on them to do a deal that included not hitting Israel,
Well,
and that
how do
Donald
you
Trump was like,
explain for the
whatever.
yeah, Donald Trump. Yeah, how do you explain the